Did you know that true luxury living doesn't start with a Rolex watch or a Ferrari in the garage? It begins with how you think, what you allow yourself to believe, and how you carry yourself across a room, even when all you have in your pocket is spare change. Most people want wealth, but think like beggars. In this video, I'll reveal 7 luxurious mindset shifts that completely changed my life, and they're exactly what made me someone who attracts success. And at the end, I'll give you a practical tool you can start using today. Don't miss it. Have you ever thought about this paradox? A poor person wins $1 million and ends up broke again in a year. Meanwhile, a wealthy person loses everything and gets back on top twice as fast. Why? Because true capital isn't in a bank account, it's in your mind. I've always said, if you want to have more, you have to become more. Success isn't about chasing money, it's about attracting results by becoming someone new. And today we're going to talk about how to become the kind of person luxury seeks out on its own. This mindset isn't about extravagance or showing off. It's about a sense of worth, confidence, and inner wholeness. It's not just about buying a $1,000 suit. It's about wearing it like someone who is worth millions. I started my life from nothing, literally. I was young, broke, had no plan, and no clue what to do next. Financial literacy wasn't taught on the farm in Idaho, but I was lucky to meet a person who changed my way of thinking forever. His name was Earl Schaff. And he told me a simple but powerful thing: work harder on yourself than you do on your job. I didn't understand it at first, but once I got it, my income, my confidence, my life, everything took off. So what is a luxury mindset? It's not just thinking about wealth, it's a deep internal belief: I am valuable. It's when you don't settle for average. When you don't justify lack, you create abundance. When you don't just survive, you create. You make bold decisions because you know your worth. You surround yourself with those who inspire, not drain you. You invest in yourself not with leftover time and money, but as a priority. That's what real luxury is. And that's why I want to share with you the 7 mindset shifts that literally changed my trajectory from debt to financial freedom, from doubt to the stage, from survival to influence. These shifts didn't happen overnight. They weren't a burst of inspiration from a book. They were the result of retraining myself day after day. And here's something to remember: discipline is the bridge between goals and achievement. I repeat this often to my students because discipline is what turns a luxury mindset from a dream into a habit. And habit is the most powerful engine of success. And one more thing: a luxury mindset is quiet, not loud. It's not a need to prove, it's a state of inner calm. Like I've said, success loves silence because it grows like a seed underground, unseen, steady, powerful. And by the time people say you're just naturally confident, you've already gone through an internal transformation no one saw. Today we're going to unpack each of these shifts. I'll tell you exactly how they changed my life and how they can change yours. But listen carefully. This isn't just a list of tips. It's a thought system you must absorb, not just hear. And at the end of this video, I'll give you a practical exercise that will help you integrate this mindset into your daily life. One small ritual that turns an ordinary morning into a luxurious start. So let me ask you this. If your life were a work of art, would you want to be its artist? Or just a smudge on the canvas? Because every habit is a brushstroke, every thought is a line, and every decision is a color. A luxury mindset is when you consciously create your masterpiece. Ready? Then let's begin. The first mindset shift that changed my life forever: I started treating myself as an investor, not a spender. Not in terms of money, in terms of energy, attention, and time. I realized every minute is capital. And the question isn't how much I have, but where I'm investing it. And that mindset is what separates someone who thinks in a luxury style from someone who lives paycheck to paycheck, not just in their wallet, but in their soul. I remember in the early days of my journey when I was completely broke at 25 years old, sitting in the kitchen with bills on the table and no idea how to get out of that hole. Then after one meeting with Earl Schaff, I started keeping a small notebook. I wrote everything down: how I spent my time, who I talked to, what I was reading. And you know what I saw? I was investing in emptiness. I was spending hours on TV, political debates, complaining about life. None of that brought me any return, neither financial nor mental. That's when I made a choice. I told myself, from today on, I only invest in what lifts me up. I started reading 30 minutes a day. I stopped talking about people and started talking about ideas. I stopped discussing problems and started searching for principles. And guess what happened? Everything around me started to change. Not immediately, not magically, but inevitably. Because when you change the source of your energy, the quality of that energy changes too. Here's a question I often ask my audience. What have you been investing your attention in over the last 7 days? And honestly, are you getting a return on it? Because a luxury mindset isn't about gold, it's about choice. Every day we face dozens of micro choices. Get up on time or hit snooze, read a meaningful page or scroll through social media, give a compliment or stay silent. And these small choices, not big events, shape the kind of thinking that attracts luxury. There's a simple metaphor I love. You're either a source or a drain. Either you nourish yourself with knowledge, energy, and perspective, or you drain yourself with irritation, doubts, and comparisons. And until you consciously choose to be a source, life will slip through your fingers. A luxury mindset begins with the decision, I no longer spend, I build. I remember once sitting on a plane next to a successful businessman. We started chatting, and I asked him, "What's the one habit that changed everything for you?" He smiled and said, "I never walk into my day without planning it the night before." And that simple phrase became my second revolution. Because a luxury mindset isn't chaos, it's predictability. Not impulse, but ritual. I began planning my evenings, not just tasks, but energy. I asked myself, how do I want to feel tomorrow? And what do I need to do today to feel that way? From that moment, every day of mine started changing before the sun even rose. Because I started planning success into my consciousness in advance. And you know what's most interesting? It didn't require any extra resources, just a decision. But that's not all. Because once you start living like an investor, life begins to pay dividends. You notice that different people start appearing in your life. People who don't waste time on complaints. People who think in terms of growth. It's not magic, it's alignment. Like I've always said, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So it makes sense. If you invest, life connects you with investors. And here lies the first and perhaps most powerful formula of luxury thinking. Stop living in reaction. Start living in decision. Because every time you react, you lose control. And every time you decide, you create. And it's creators who attract luxury because they don't just want, they act. In the next part, I'll reveal the second mindset shift, and it's one of the most unexpected truths about why most people never reach a new level, even though they have the potential. Hint, it has everything to do with what you allow yourself and what you don't. Now let me ask you, what have you invested in yourself today? The next shift that completely flipped my understanding of success was simple yet painful. People don't get what they deserve, they get what they allow. And when I first heard that, I was offended. What do you mean what they allow, I thought. But the longer I lived, the more I realized everything you have in life, good or bad, is either something you created or something you allowed. And this is where true luxury thinking begins. Because the luxury mindset isn't about the ability to dream, it's about the ability to say no. Saying no to toxic conversations, saying no to draining relationships, saying no to limitations imposed by society, and most importantly, saying no to a diminished self-image. I often said, don't ask for what you're not ready to receive. And what does a person with a poverty mindset do? They ask for a better life and simultaneously accept less every day. They ask for respect and silently endure humiliation. They ask for money and allow themselves to work for peanuts. And here's the key, your standard is your ceiling. I remember a story. It was during the period when I had just started earning a bit, but still thought like someone afraid to lose. I came into a negotiation, and the person across the table said, "Well, Jim, we'd love to have you speak for our company, but here's our budget." And they named an amount half of what I normally charged, and I was just about to agree. But then I remembered Shoaff's words, "If you don't value yourself, no one else will do it for you." I smiled and replied, "Thank you. I appreciate your offer, but my standard is this amount. If you can meet it, I'd be happy to share what I have with you." And what do you think happened? 2 days later, they found the budget. Not because they suddenly had more money, but because they felt I wasn't going to lower my value. And here's the paradox. When you stop lowering yourself, the world begins to rise to meet you. Luxury mindset is a deep realization. You are not on the discount rack, you are in the realm of choice. You don't beg, you choose. And to make that a reality, you must first change your inner image of yourself. Because most people don't lack what they want due to inability, but because they don't believe they have the right. Let me ask, when was the last time you asked yourself, what will I no longer allow in my life? It's not an easy question, but it's the beginning of real transformation. Once I did a simple experiment. I wrote down 10 things I would no longer allow in my day, from checking my phone before breakfast to tolerating empty conversations. And you know what happened? Within a week, I felt like I was living with dignity. Not pride, not pretense, but dignity. And here's another insight. People with a luxury mindset always have a clear boundary. They don't explain themselves. They don't justify. They simply refuse quietly. And that's what creates the aura. Not money, not suits, but a moral boundary of what's allowed. A friend of mine once said, every time you accept less, you're training your brain to lower the bar. That hit me like a punch, because I remembered how many times I agreed to conversations I didn't enjoy, meetings that led nowhere, discounts no one asked for, and in that moment I made a decision. I don't lower, I rise, and those who want to will rise with me. Luxury mindset is when every no becomes a yes to yourself, when every refusal is an act of self-respect, when you know your life is not a compromise, it's a masterpiece, and you are the lead artist. So let me ask you right now, what will you no longer allow in your life from this moment on? And be honest, because once you decide, the world will start to adjust. The world always aligns with inner confidence, always. In the next shift, we'll talk about one of the least obvious reasons why most people never truly feel successful, even when they have all the external signs. It's connected to nighttime thinking and how you go to bed. The third shift that didn't just change my actions, but the entire rhythm of my life, was the habit of ending the day stronger than I started it. Most people live in reverse. They wake up with hope and fall asleep with disappointment. But the luxury mindset isn't about hope. It's about control over rhythm. And the most powerful point of influence isn't the morning, as many believe it's the night. Don't start your day until you finished it on paper. That's a rule I heard from my mentor, Earl Schuff. But over the years, I added another formula to it. Don't go to sleep until you've locked in a win. What does that mean? It's not about working until midnight. It's about the inner sense that you didn't just spend the day, you directed it. You were present. You acted. You ended the day with dignity. I used to feel like my days ended in fatigue. I'd come home, sit in front of the TV, and let myself fall apart. I'm tired, I'd say. I deserve to relax. But over time, I noticed those evenings didn't leave me relaxed. They left me drained. Because I wasn't resting, I was escaping, so I changed everything. I introduced a nighttime luxury mindset ritual. What does that mean? It's 20 minutes of silence before bed, no phone, no news, just me, my notebook, and my thoughts. I write down 3 wins from the day, 1 lesson, and 1 decision for tomorrow. And you know what happened? My nights became sacred, and my mornings crystal clear. Because I wasn't waking up in anxiety, I was continuing a process that had already begun the night before. Luxury thinking isn't about how you start the day. It's about who you are when you fall asleep. Fall asleep in chaos, wake up in confusion. Fall asleep with clarity, wake up in strength. And here's the deeper layer. Success is formed not in movement, but in stillness. It's in the moment when you turn everything off that real transformation begins. People often ask me, Jim, how do you stay focused in this chaotic world? I answer simply, reconnect with yourself every night before bed. Most people live without knowing themselves. They know the forecast, the headlines, other people's opinions, but they don't know, what did I feel today? What did I allow myself? What did I lose? And what did I gain? And that evening moment of honesty, that's luxury, not for Instagram, for the soul. I once heard a phrase that the richest people in the world aren't those with the most money, but those with the most clarity. And I thought that's the formula. Luxury mindset is clarity. Clarity about what you want, where you're going, and who you want to wake up next to, both literally and figuratively. And you know what's most paradoxical? It's often those who appear the most successful on the outside who lack nighttime thinking the most. They look confident but fall asleep empty. Because if you don't reflect on your day, you don't fully live it. And then even the highest achievements feel hollow. I was once invited to speak at an elite event. There were millionaires, business owners, authors, and I decided not to start with advice, but with one question. Who were you today before you walked into this room? The room went silent, because that question isn't about roles or titles, it's about inner state. And that's what determines how ready we are for the next level. Luxury mindset is constant self-checking for authenticity. Not do I look successful, but am I living like someone who's successful? Is my inner silence a source or an escape? Because a person's real level is seen not when they speak, but when they're silent. Not when they're on stage, but when they're alone. Not when they receive, but when they fall asleep. I invite you today to reflect on this. When was the last evening that felt like a victory? Not because of achievements, but because of a sense of fullness. If you can't remember, don't beat yourself up. Just make the next one feel that way. And repeat, because luxury mindset isn't a one-time decision, it's a ritual every evening. And in the next section, we'll go even deeper. Because the fourth shift is about how we choose the environment that either fuels our growth or silently destroys it every single day. And if you think you can grow while staying in a toxic environment, I have a truth you need to hear. See you in the next section. The fourth shift that completely changed my trajectory was a deep realization. I can't think luxuriously if poverty is constantly echoing around me. And I'm not talking about money. I mean the language, the energy, the focus, the habits of those around me. The luxury mindset doesn't live in a vacuum. It's either cultivated by your environment or destroyed by it. I remember early in my journey, I spent time with people who did nothing but complain about taxes, the weather, politicians, their bosses. At first I thought it's just talk, but eventually I realized their words were becoming my thoughts, and that realization hit me harder than any financial loss. If you hear that's impossible every day, you'll start to believe it. If people around you say, that's not for us, your brain will register that as law. And then, even if deep down you dream big, that dream starts sounding like fantasy, not a plan. That's why I made one of the firmest decisions of my life. I chose to be radically selective about who I let close. It wasn't easy. Some of them had been with me for years. But I realized loyalty to yourself is more important than loyalty to old patterns. Your environment is either an amplifier or a brake. You either grow alongside those who raise the bar or gradually lower it to the level of normal. But a luxury mindset doesn't live in the normal zone. It's born in a space of challenge, where every conversation is like a mirror, where every meeting is a course correction, where even silence holds meaning because others see you as greater than you are now. I often say, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And it's not about competition, it's about potential. Because in the right environment, you don't have to prove your worth. You simply unfold it like a seed in the right soil. So if you're seeking the next mindset shift, don't just look in the mirror. Look around. Who around you supports your vision? Who clips your wings? Who triggers doubt? And most importantly, who pushes you to think bigger than yesterday? The next fifth shift goes even deeper. It's not about people, it's about space and silence, and about how your environment either elevates your level of thinking or devalues even your best ideas. The fifth shift that surprised me with its power was the realization that the space around you is an extension of your thinking. The silence in a room reflects the silence in your mind. The order on your desk mirrors the order in your intentions. Light, scent, color, these aren't just background, they're signals your brain reads every second. And they either elevate your sense of dignity or quietly devalue you day after day. There was a time I lived in a small apartment, nothing fancy, a modest room, wooden floor, old desk. But at some point I realized I was behaving in that space as if I were just passing through. I didn't take care of it, I didn't decorate. I didn't create an environment where I wanted to think, create, or make big decisions. I was waiting for a better place. In the meantime, I lived in a this will do for now mode. Then I decided to run an experiment. I dusted the shelves, rearranged the furniture, lit a candle, cleaned off my desk. I created aesthetics. Simple, modest, but intentional. And you know what happened? I started thinking differently. My ideas became clearer, my plans more precise, my breathing deeper, because the space stopped being accidental. It became an ally. Luxury mindset isn't about a mansion, it's about conscious space, about a place where every detail says, you matter here, your thoughts are valued here, your presence belongs. It's when your room is not just a room, it's a sanctuary of dignity. From that point on, I began treating my space as a helper. Every time I tidied up, I thought, I'm not just clearing the desk, I'm clearing my mind. And the opposite was true too. When the room was messy, my decisions were shaky. When there was noise, my thoughts were cluttered. That's why luxury begins with order. Someone once told me, Jim, you always seem so composed. How do you do it? I smiled, because I knew it's not luck, it's a choice. I simply asked myself each day, is my space worthy of the person I want to become? If the answer is no, I change it. In the next section, we'll go even deeper. We'll talk about the language you use every day and how it either lifts you or ties you to mediocrity. And this sixth habit is one of the most deceptive, but also the most transformative. The sixth shift is very subtle, almost invisible, but incredibly powerful. It's the language you use, how you speak about yourself, to yourself, and around yourself. Most people don't realize that their vocabulary is their code, a code that either programs them for growth or blocks any transformation. And the luxury mindset begins with luxurious language. Not pretentious, but elevated, strong, and responsible. I remember once speaking at an event, and afterward a young man approached me. He said, Jim, I've just never been a star. I never had a chance. I looked him in the eye and replied, if that's how you speak about yourself, it means you haven't made peace with your own value yet. He paused, and I added, words don't describe reality, they create it. Every day we throw phrases into the universe that either build bridges or erect walls. I can't. I'm just not lucky. That's just who I am. That's the poison of poverty thinking. But luxury thinking sounds different. I'm learning, I'm becoming, I can. These phrases are commands to your brain. Find a way, not an excuse. One time I changed just one phrase in my daily vocabulary. Instead of saying I have to, I started saying I choose to. And what changed? Everything. Because I stopped being a victim of circumstances and became the master of action. When you say I have to, you're putting yourself in a subordinate position. But when you say I choose to, you activate a luxurious trait of mindset, responsibility. Here's another key point. Luxury mindset doesn't speak carelessly. It speaks clearly, intentionally, concisely. People with a high level of thinking don't throw words around. They understand every word is either an investment in respect or a leak into chaos. So, if you want to start changing your level, start with your words. Write them down. Listen to yourself. Adjust. You have the power to build a new reality every day just through a different phrase. This isn't a trick. It's not NLP. It's basic mental hygiene. You wouldn't let yourself live in filth, so why allow yourself to speak in toxins? In the next section, we'll dive into the seventh shift, the final one, but also one of the most powerful. It's about giving yourself permission for abundance, and why most people are actually afraid of greatness, even while claiming they want it. The seventh shift is the most paradoxical, because it seems like we all want more. More money, more freedom, more beauty, but very few actually allow themselves abundance. Because in our minds, abundance is often associated with selfishness, sin, or excess. I already have enough, says the mind, but the soul knows, no, you're living beneath your potential. Luxury mindset is not about greed, it's about the readiness to receive fully, without shrinking, without apologizing, without backpedaling, because when you think like someone who doesn't deserve too much, what does life do? It listens and gives you exactly as much as you believe is not too much. I remember once turning down the opportunity to buy a house I truly loved. Know why? Because I thought, it's too much, I'm not, and then I caught myself, I didn't even finish the sentence, just not. Because my inner censor was already shutting the desire down. That's when I told myself, I will no longer cut pieces off my dream to make it fit within my limits. I will expand my limits so the dream becomes the new normal. Luxury mindset isn't too much, it's all in. It's when you drink from a full cup and give others not the leftovers but the overflow. It's when you have not just money but generosity. Not just time but space. Not just a thought but a vision. It's permission to carry something great, not for show but for impact. Someone once told me, you live too boldly for your background. And I replied, it's not my fault, my desires are bigger than the box I was put in. And this is the final shift. A successful person isn't the one who earned, it's the one who allowed. And life, like an obedient student, simply gave them what they were ready for. So let me ask you today, do you allow yourself abundance, not wastefulness, fullness? Do you ask life for everything or just a little? Because if you ask for just something, you'll get barely enough. But if you say, I'm ready to receive everything I'm capable of, then a new kind of energy opens up. And this is the final luxury mindset shift, to give up enough in favor of full. Now it's time to look inward, because a luxury mindset doesn't live in theory. It lives in action. In the glance you give yourself in the mirror each morning, in how you behave when no one is watching, in the silence before sleep. So let's do one thing together, a small mental test, not to judge yourself, but to see where you are right now and where you can grow starting tonight. Take a scale from 1 to 10. 1 means not at all, and 10 means absolutely. Think quickly. Don't try to be perfect. Your first answer is the truest. Don't pause, don't rewind, just allow yourself to be honest. Ready? Question 1. How much do I allow myself to live with dignity? I'm not talking about pride. I mean, do I allow myself better food, better clothing, better words toward myself, or do I settle for whatever works? Think about it. I constantly settle for less, and I create a space where I feel good. This isn't about money, it's about atmosphere. Is it a luxury to be you? Question 2. How much do my days start and end with clarity? Think about it. Do I know where I'm going when I wake up? Do I go to bed with a sense of closure? Or do I just drag through the days hoping something will change? I drift through life. I guide each day with intention. Because a luxurious life isn't a sum of achievements. It's a sense of control. Not control from tension, control from clarity. Question 3. How selectively do I choose my environment? Do I let random people affect my mood, decisions, self-esteem, or do I consciously build my space? I'm everywhere with everyone. I know exactly who I'm with and why. Remember, you are the average of the 5 people around you. And not just people, thoughts, videos, phrases, environments. Luxury mindset starts with protecting your space. Question 4. How much do I invest in myself daily rather than drain myself? Are my habits capital or waste? Do my actions build me or just burn energy? I live in survival mode. Every day, I make myself stronger. Success isn't a marathon, it's investment. Every action is a deposit. Every inaction is like inflation. Question 5. How respectfully does my inner voice speak to me? When I'm alone, do I support myself or tear myself down? My inner dialogue is toxic. I am my own strongest ally. There is no room for inner bullying in a luxury mindset. A successful person doesn't yell at themselves, they listen and lead. Did you do it? Good. Remember your numbers. Now let me tell you this. Your scores are not a verdict. They're a starting point. This is your launch pad. And from here, it's just a matter of technique, a matter of choice. Because every number you want to raise isn't about changing your circumstances. It's about changing a habit, a thought, a reaction. And you know what's truly luxurious? Not being perfect. Being conscious, not playing a role for the world, but building depth in silence. Luxury mindset isn't an outer effect, it's an inner system. And if you saw a growth point today, that's already a win. I have a small request. If this video made you pause and reflect, leave a like. It's a way to thank not me but yourself, because you allowed yourself a moment of reflection, and that's rare. And one more thing, share in the comments which question hit you the hardest. The one that touched you deeper than the others. Write just one phrase, question X stopped me. That comment isn't just engagement, it's an act of awareness. And who knows, someone may read your answer and start changing too. After watching, come back to these questions. In silence, maybe right before bed. In that moment when luxury isn't about things, but about the space to be yourself. That's where strength begins. And here we are at the end, but in truth, this is only the beginning. Because a luxury mindset isn't a destination, it's a way of traveling, it's a way of thinking, breathing, deciding, acting. It's not about impressing anyone, it's about never betraying yourself again. You can live with less, if you choose to, but if you've settled, that's no longer living, that's surviving, and you weren't born for that. When I first heard that success is not something you pursue, it's something you attract, I didn't believe it. I thought you had to chase, prove, fight. But over the years, I learned the most important lesson. Success is attracted not by effort, but by state. A state of inner dignity, decisiveness, clarity, quiet confidence. Quiet as night, powerful as dawn. So if you felt something real today, don't lose it. Don't return to routine right away. Stay in the stillness. Look at your day, not as a critic, as an architect. because you are a creator. And that is the most luxurious status there is. Remember this, you are not the result of circumstances. You are the result of permissions. Permission to think higher, to feel deeper, to strive bolder, and to act with greater certainty. It's those permissions that lead to what others call success. But for you, it will simply feel natural. Let me leave you with one phrase that has guided me my entire life. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job, and then the job will begin working for you. It's not just a quote, it's a key. And today you've received it. A key to a mindset where luxury isn't a goal, it's a form of presence, a form of self-respect, a form of influence. So what's next? Just remember, you don't need to wait for a better life. You need to allow a better version of yourself, and then life will rise to meet you. That's how the law works. This is Jim Rohn. Thank you for thinking with me today, and don't stop now. You're already on the path.